Good morning, good day, everyone, and thank you for being here with me, joining us. And one of the important questions in mathematics and inclusion. My name is Sidney Guiang, and I'm currently a Master's of Education student in International Schools University with a professional background in secondary inclusion and mathematics education. I've been teaching for 5 years, and one question strikes me the most. How do we design mathematics learning experience that are inclusive and emotionally safe for all students? That question is the heart of today's panel discussion, titled Rethinking Math Instructions, Reducing Overload, Fostering Inclusion, and Boosting Engagement. In many classrooms, students don't just disengage from mathematics because they lack ability. Sometimes they are disengaged because of the cognitive and emotional demands of learning math becoming overwhelming. When students feel overloaded or anxious or stressed, even a well designed content can fail to reach them. That is why rethinking math instruction is no longer optional. It is essential if you want all students to engage, persist, and succeed meaningfully. To explore this topic from multiple perspectives, we're joined today by a panel with complementary roles and expertise. We have Dr. Sidat Glera, a secondary math teacher who brings direct classroom experience and insight into daily instruction decision making. She has more than 16 years of teaching experience in different countries, different schools, and different curricula. Next is we have Miss Hia Soriano, Deputy Head of Inclusion, again with also more than 16 years of experience as a special education teacher and inclusion teacher. She will help us think critically about accessibility, representation, and supporting diverse learners' needs. And finally, we have Mr. Keith Spencer, head of secondary mathematics, with more than, listen up, more than 29 years of teaching and leading the mathematics department. That's big. He will share a leadership and departmental perspective on how inclusive practices can be supported and sustained at a systematic level. Together, this perspective allow us to move beyond theory into practical thinking. Our discussion today is structured around three interconnected themes or takeaways. First, we will explore how to design mathematics lessons that eliminate extraneous cognitive loads, allowing students to focus their mental energy and understanding rather than navigating unnecessary complexities. Second, after we remove some barriers, we will now examine on what is the importance of multimodal tools that can support mathematical understanding more inclusive, particularly for students who struggle abstract concepts. And lastly, we will look to how to cultivate a safe growth mindset classroom, one that transforms mathematics society into engagement and values the learning process as much as the final answer. Each theme builds on previous one. So I invite everyone to think about these ideas, connect in real practices. If you have any questions for our experts, kindly wait until the end of the discussion and type in the chat, and we will try to answer them. Let us begin with the lesson design. Cognitive load is something with every secondary math teachers wrestles every day. So, Dr. Sira, when designing a secondary math lesson, what is your most reliable technique for eliminating extraneous cognitive load?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for listening to me initially. I believe math lessons should be very, very simple. Most uncluttered lesson is something which reaches out to students very well. In these days and times, teachers try and put in too much effort on designing the PowerPoints with too much extra symbols, designing, and that's the effort which kind of I feel distracts the students more than focusing on the real math terms. So obviously, when you're designing a lesson, the first thing that you need to keep in mind is the core mathematical goal that you're planning to achieve. That's the foremost thing. And everything revolves around it. So any sorts of extra information should be avoided. There should be clearly a prior knowledge check. That's how you know where to really take them from and what's the final goal you're taking them towards. There should be lots of worked examples. So my personal motto is I do, we do, and then you do. So they see where are they heading, what is the eventual and the final outcome, and of course, followed by clear instructions, one step at a time, less teacher talk, more for them to work, and that's pretty much as simple as it is. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That really highlights how we need to focus on what really matters. Sometimes, sometimes cheap teachers are trying to be very creative in a manner that it is very destructive to our learners. Building on that idea, lesson clarity becomes even more critical when we consider learners with additional needs. So, Miss Hias, how do you adapt your teaching materials to remove distractions or unnecessary cognitive load for learners with additional needs?
All right. Good evening, everyone. And in terms of handling student with additional needs, it's very important to remember that for them, less is more. You know, it's a very straightforward statement wherein when we do adapt the materials for them, it's very important to have the resources that what they need only in that particular topic. Aside from understanding their learning style, resources is very important because that's how you will be able to get their attention and engagement throughout the lesson. So you adopt the resources by understanding that less is more, and breaking the task into smaller part is another way of teaching student with additional needs that I would like to add to Dr. Sirat what she said, that like it's very important to model them first, whatever concept you are teaching, allow them to explore it on their own with guidance, and then later on allow and encourage them for independence. So basically, less is more, and focus on how we're going to relate the topic into a real life situation as well, because student with additional needs, it concept can be very vague, but once they're gonna see and understand that it's related to their daily living, then it will make sense for them.
Thank you. That is a powerful reminder that less is always more. Simple yet powerful. I appreciate how you emphasize also breaking a big task to smaller chunks so students can really understand what is happening. And I like the last phrase wherein we need to relate it in our daily life so they can really adjust their it's not really abstract to them, but they can internalize it, understand it, and apply it in their lives. This raises an important question at an departmental level. So first in our lessons, we said that Dr. Sila said that make it simple as it is, followed by Miss Hias, make it less. So, Mr. Keith, how can the math department's assessment design be revised to reduce students' anxiety so they can focus more on instruction that minimizes overload? I think Mr. Keith, you're on mute.
Back to the COVID days. Thanks for having me, Mr. Sid. The big part about anxiety for me is it's fear. When we're teaching either little kids, maybe year 6 or even lower, or higher years, even up to years 12 and 13 or grade 12, when they have to take exams, anxiety really sits in. The big point that you want to try to do is you want to build the relationships that the students feel comfortable, and that fear, for whatever reason it is, can just be shielded to the side. I think that's the biggest point about just attacking that fear and making it be known, addressing it head on. One of the things that I like to do, and Ms. Sirak can tell you about this, I try to go into, as a leader, I try to go into all the classrooms all the times. And I go in and I kind of joke around with the kids, ask them what they're learning, do different things. So at the leadership level, what you want to do is you want to make sure that every kid is taken care of. And that's the goal. It's not just that this group is taken care of, everyone's taken care of. Everybody's needs are being met. I think that one of the bigger things is that in mathematics, we need to stop, all, and this is across the board, we need to stop shifting from actually like a memory test, and we need to start giving things like thinking tests or thinking assessments. One of the reasons that I love the MYP is because they have 4 criteria. They're not always taking like a sit down, write down test. That's like a criterion we would consider criterion A in NYP mathematics. They have other areas that actually allow students to display different things. I know once I did a poster where the kids then used their artwork with their math work to make sure that if they were good at art, but maybe not as good as math, some of those other things are good, or if they're good at writing essays. And that's where criterion C comes in for communication. I'll just give you an example of what we're doing now. We're doing 3D shapes in year 9 at my school. And we have a task that's filled in through the whole unit. It's called Ingenious Solutions. And we're doing it on 3D shapes. But at the end, we've kind of broken it down that we know that they're going to have to build something for our campus, or actually write a plan for building something to our campus that's a real life situation that has a 3D shape. So one of the kids wants to build a recycling bin. Another kid wanted to build a sail for the younger kids when they go out and play. When you do those types of things and you make it real, put it in a real world application situation, the students' anxiety sometimes will go away, especially if they're doing things that they really like.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. That's why I love also IB, wherein like it's not just about papers of exam, do this and do that. It's not just about memorization of the formulas. It's not just about the process, but you understand it. I really love that one, that we as a educator, we need to know that it is not about just memorization, but it should be about thinking. How do students think regarding these topics that we have? Okay, when assessment aligns with instructions, students are free to focus to understand rather than just survival. This naturally leads us to our second theme. If reducing overload is about removing unnecessary barriers, then the next question becomes, how do we intentionally add the right supports to help students access mathematical ideas? The theme 2 is focused on how representation matters. Not just what we teach, but how students encounter how they see mathematics. Let us hear from Mr. Keith uh, answer the question, as a department, what are the key things that must be embedded in all planning to make sure that all students can meaningfully engage with the lesson?
Honestly, I think you need to hit it head on. As math teachers, a lot of us want to do to say that our kids come to us and it's a old teacher's fault why this student doesn't know this, or something of that nature. They weren't taught somewhere else. But at the end of the day, when you're developing all your lessons, you should kind of take the universal design for learning and have a low floor and high ceiling, making sure that you're addressing all the needs of all of your students, not just the middle of the group, not just the top of the group, and not just the bottom. You have to meet them where they are, and then you have to get growth. One example I like to give is specifically about visual representation, is about completing the square. In years 9 or 10, you might need to complete the square for you math people out there. And then guess what? Some people will get it from a visual representation. Somebody might get it from an algebraic representation. Somebody might even be able to figure it out by using algebra tiles, where they're actually using kinetics and visualization. So you need to be able to give those tools when you can for those students. And that's the kind of the big thing. You need to make sure that you explicitly think about what they have to do, and then explicitly think about what they have to know at the end. For instance, one of our big thing is this year, our focus in my new department, because I'm new to my school, is tier 2 vocabulary, making sure you know the command terms. A lot of our students are English as second language students. So we have to make sure, just because I say justify or evaluate, I'm assuming they would know what that means. We have to teach that vocabulary as well. It's not just basically giving them something and assuming they know it. you have to basically take the guesswork out of everything and breaking it down to literally the smallest particular piece, as the two ladies have said earlier.
That idea is really, really important. Low floor and high ceiling. It does not disregard students because sometimes students of determination or students with special needs are sometimes being neglected in the classroom. But some of the classes, the people who have really, really, really good are being neglected as well because the teachers will say that, oh, they know it already, so they don't need help. But it's not should be the case. We should always low floor and high ceiling so that we can accommodate every kind of learner. Let us zoom in now on what it looks like in a level of uh, concept development. So I have a question for Ms. Hias. For students who find abstract concept challenging, what is your process for breaking down complex concepts to its sorry representational forms to ensure deeper understanding?
So like, whenever we teach students with additional needs, it's very important for us to show them the sense of this particular concept. So when breaking tasks, to give them a deeper understanding of a particular concept, visual representation is one thing, but connecting it to real life will make it more sense for them. It doesn't matter if it's about money or shapes or length, as long as they'll be able to relate it into real life. That's when we're going to be able to dig a little bit deeper on the understanding of a particular concept for them. It will make sense because it's connected to what they see outside school. So basically, relating it to real life is the bottom line and key on how to give them a deeper understanding of a particular concept.
I love how you framed it like as a bridge and not just a help. Okay, it's like a bridge. You need to bridge that idea to something that is concrete so that you can understand it better. Moving from concrete to pictorial to abstract gives students multiple entry points into the same idea. So not every student can understand the pictures, not every student can understand abstract, but I'm pretty sure most of the student will understand what is a concrete because they can see it, they can feel it, and they can really understand what is going on. All right. So knowing what to do doesn't always mean it is easy. Sometimes we know what to do, but there are always some things that will hinder us to do it or will stretch our ability on how to do it. So, Dr. Sierra, what challenges do teachers face when trying to use multimodal tools for inclusion and how can this be overcome?
Well, yes, there are a lot of challenges, but the major ones I can think about is number one, visual tools can be very distracting at times. They could actually often take them off the task and they get into, even when they open a laptop, let's to work on a certain task, which is assigned by the teacher, they are working on multiple tasks and they can easily get distracted. That's one major challenge pretty much all schools do face. So their focus again shifts from math to everything else. That's one. Second is, teachers' confidence with using these tools. Most of the times, if the teachers are not very confident with the technical issues going around, they are themselves not tech savvy to use those tools in the classroom. So that could cause a major failure in the class. Second, of course, there are internet issues. If there's an internet which suddenly cuts off, you planned your lesson in a certain way, everything around the technology. And if that's not supporting you, it's a big failure. Well, to overcome that, as I think Ms. Yas was just saying, to break down the topics, I would say, scaffolding is super important. So if we scaffold them, we should also have some alternate options of without technology, more like a worksheet form or a task or a project form, which Mr. Spencer was just talking about, that helps them overcome and probably look at the same question with multiple angles. So that helps them think about a situation in different ways. Then, of course, there could be, guided examples. And there are some, but if we have to stick to technology, then there are some very creative tools, and I'm a big fan of Nearpod. Nearpod is something which really, help us showcase their learning exactly in the real time, and they can work on it at their own pace. So there's no race to reach somewhere. So everyone has their own pattern and pace to work on. Thank you.
Thank you for naming those challenges, honestly.
Yeah.
And honestly, I face them every time as well. And it is really, really hard, especially when dealing with student of determination. Like when you say open your laptop, maybe 90% of the students will do something else rather than what you asked them to do. And it is really hard to put them back on task. And thank you, Dr. Sira, that we need to scaffold very clearly. We need to break it down for them so that when they know what to do, they will do it on their own. As we move to our final theme, final takeaway, I'd like us to shift from tools and strategies to a classroom culture wherein it is not very visible because we are talking about emotions. A perfectly designed lesson can still fail if a student are blocked by fear of being wrong. Remember, when anxiety rises, working memory shrinks. So even though you're really, really good, and I think we know that even a student is really good in doing something, when there is fear, they are being hindered on how to express it, on how to do it, and sometimes they cannot even do it. Okay, our final theme focuses on something less visible but as powerful, emotional climate of the math classroom. So, Dr. Sirat, how do you cultivate a safe growth mindset classroom where students' mistakes are treated as part of deep and engaged learning?
I may be a great math teacher, I may be good at math, but if I do not form relationships with my students, I am a big failure. So I feel bonding with the students and having that safe environment is absolutely supreme. That can start with, when you enter a math classroom and you feel that anxiety kicks in, especially with the algebra concepts and stuff like that. So if you normalize making mistakes and you normalize having no wrong answers, that kind of helps them settle down quickly. It is okay to make mistake because we are all learning, and that's absolutely okay. I work with praising the effort rather than the correct answer. So if you're making an effort, you are definitely moving one step ahead. So that is okay. And I literally tell my students right on the very first day, I'm absolutely okay if you don't score a full score, but I'm a complete big fan, and I feel you have really improved as a student if you are making effort. So that's there. Think, pair, share, stuff like that. If you can't speak, again, Nearpod comes in to help. Some students sitting in that corner in the end, you don't know if they're learning, but their learning is shown in these different ways when you see the answer popping up. And that's just how everyone's welcomed, everyone's acknowledged. I see you. That's important. Yeah.
The idea of treating mistakes as evidence of thinking rather than failure is really, really great. Okay, I have this same mindset we're in because I can hear every time that, sir, I really hate math. Sir, I really hate math. So why do I need to learn math? If the very first thing that the student will say is that thing, I think you need to build a relationship first so they will not fear the teacher and listen to the teacher, listen to the instructions so they will learn. When they are safe, they will listen. But I think some of the students, especially students with determination, anxiety runs deeper than just classroom norms. So, Miss Hias, what is the most effective classroom intervention you have used to help students who have high mathematics anxiety to help them regulate their emotions and shift their focus back to learning?
You know, it's very interesting in terms of getting your students' engagement back into your lesson. So, first of all, based on my professional experience and on my own professional judgment, having a very positive rapport with your student is number one thing. You know, as Dr. Sirat said, you know, how you need to create a safe environment for them, because if the child feels unsafe with you in your class, it will you've already lost your student, right? Because then you cannot proceed into delivering the lesson because you've lost your student already. So aside from having a very safe environment for your student, it's understanding that they have the anxiety already in this particular subject, so you lower down your demand. You connect with them, but by making them understand that, first of all, it's not about how smart you are. It's a matter of how you're going to sustain your engagement in my lesson. And using positive reinforcement is very effective, not just with student with additional needs, but for everyone, us like students, your own children, parents, even if you're a CEO, or even if you're working as in a restaurant, for example, positive reinforcement is always a good motivation. So even if it's a slightest, a smallest achievement, it should be well celebrated, because that's how you're gonna get their engagement back. And aside from that, differentiating the questions, not just because you have a high ability student, you're going to ask the same question for your student with additional needs. So differentiated question is very important, because that's when they're going to feel that, okay, this question is something that I'm able to answer, and it will boost my confidence because I know I can answer the question. So getting the engagement back is important if you have a very good relationship with the student and you know their interest.
So it is really safe to say that emotional regulation is a prerequisite for learning. Supporting students' feeling isn't separate from teaching math, but it is a part of it. So this is also raises a question about consistency across all classrooms. So, Mr. Keith, as the head of the department, how can the department leadership ensure that teachers consistently prioritize and reward process rather than product or answers only?
To answer that, it's kind of multifaceted. I'd have to go back a little bit before that situation comes up and talk about how department leaders need to actually empower their other teachers. As he asked me to comment about being in a safe environment. As a department head, it's not just the students that you're responsible for, you're also responsible for the staff that's underneath your care. So that what happens is it's not my department, it's our department. Each teacher can be different, but they have to be they have to have the autonomy to do the things that they think are best in their classroom. And the more and more you do that, the more and more buy-in you will get from your staff. So what happens is, as a department, you need to make the decision of where do we need to go. That decision needs to be made as a department, not by one person. So now to piggyback now on the answer to the question is, you have to ask yourself, what do you value? So when you're grading, what do you value in your grades? For instance, for us, it's fairly straightforward for the diploma in the DP, because they have exams, they have exemplars, they have mark schemes. And as you're teaching, you're developing the students to grade papers like they are an examiner. You're not trying to sugarcoat things. You're giving it to them from day one. And actually, we backtrack this all the way through MYP to make sure that we're grading them and we're telling them how they're going to get marks. So specifically about just writing answers and not visualizing and showing all of their process, that's only one point. So if they have a 3-point question and they only share the answer, if you make it an expectation that they only get 1 point for the answer, it is embedded in. But if it's not, they'll think you're lying. And then, of course, kids will do the least if you set the bar as low as you can. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have that kind of culture where, guess what? Your teacher has the autonomy to say, hey, we're going to get to this place. And then every teacher has to do that. I would also say about your grading policy, you should have a grading policy. How things go out, what kind of marks are there? If two teachers teach in the same course, when are we giving our tests back? Not one teacher giving it back on one day and one on another way. I think all those things kind of tie into it, but you want to also make sure that the kids feel safe. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. The kids perform when they're safe. When they're not safe, they're anxious and they underperform. It's kind of very simple. And I would always say, specifically for mathematics teachers out there, think about this and say this all the time to the students. Process matters. One of the big things I talk to my kids about in the diploma is you can basically get 50% on every question and end up getting a 5 out of the thing up to 7 by not even getting a question correct, by just getting half of the questions and showing your procedures and showing what you're thinking, even if your calculations aren't correct.
Thank you for that. Really, really, really emphasize the word process matters. So for because I have a student also that like they don't like to show their process, and I keep telling them that we need to practice this together. We need to have process every time. Okay, so before we end, I have one more question for Miss Hias. So Miss Hias, what practices do you use to promote equitable participation and amplify the voices of students who might withdraw due to fear of failure?
So like what I have said a while ago, and even Mr. Keith and Dr. Sirat, number one, it's understanding the nature of your student. When you know that the child is having that anxiety, then the first thing that needs to be on our mind as a teacher is not the concept that we're going to teach. It's first connecting with our student. And what do they said what do they say? Your first teacher is your parent, then your experience, then teacher, but the fourth teacher is actually the classroom. So when the child enters the classroom, that's exactly when they're gonna start having the feeling of I am ready to learn, I am okay to make mistake, because the teacher provided that safe environment for them. So it's navigating as a teacher, not just a teacher, but also a guidance and mentor when you have your student, and making sure that it's okay for them to make mistake, and small wins we should be celebrating it in a more, you know um student centered way. In that way we can lower the anxiety, then we can start building up their connection and their engagement with the lesson.
Dr. Hias, so as we wrap up, we can conclude that inclusive mathematics is not just about a single strategy or a single tool that every teacher should use, but it is about alignment. It is about how you build up your relationship with your students, knowing your students, knowing what to teach. So, alignment between lessons, lesson designs, representation, assessments, and classroom culture is really, really important. Now we will move to our question and answer. Okay, anybody of you have questions, can you kindly type it in here and we will try to answer it. Our specialist will try to answer them for you. All right, let's wait for a few more seconds. Maybe there are no more questions. Here we go. From Miss Ritu. Sometimes as a teacher, you understand a lot of points, but pressure of syllabus is also on you. What a teacher can do. So I think this is best suits for either Dr. Sirat or Mr. Keith. How about Dr. Sirat first?
Okay, so sometimes as a teacher, you understood a lot of points, but pressure of syllabus is also on you what a teacher can do. Yes, absolutely. That is something which we deal with pretty much every year. Uh, that is the exact reason why I say relationship is super important. So right at the beginning, when there is no pressure of reaching to the end of the syllabus, that is the time you can actually bond with the students very well. Again, once you have a relationship, your 50% of the job is done. So whatever that you're trying to do and teach them, they come halfway. So the process becomes much more easier. So as I said, not every student will achieve a full 7 or a 8 in the grade that you're teaching. The ones which have been doing well will definitely go better and do better. But the ones who started with a 1 and 2 with you will definitely, let's say I'm teaching them in grade 8 currently, but once they reach grade 9, they will show the progress eventually, because that has now become the culture of making an effort, and eventually the effort and movement will happen. So yes, you continue with your syllabus, definitely. And on the side, you keep building that little bond with them. You can have them walking into your class with this extra support that if they want. You have those lunchtime math support lessons, which we have all the time. So if they feel comfortable with you, they will definitely walk in.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Sira.
I just want to piggyback that about the syllabus part of it. A lot of it has to do with planning as well. What happens is a lot of times you fall behind because things aren't planned properly. Things happen in schools. You might have an assembly, a class is taken away. I've been in my share of those situations where I'm behind the 8 ball with time. But at the end of the day, if you take everything away and you think about what you're there to do, you're there to serve at the end of the day. So from a department standpoint, if I'm the head of department, my job is to serve the teacher's job is to serve their individual kids. So I have to come up with a plan to make sure that everything is done. It is not, to be completely honest, unless you're planning your own syllabus and your head of department has put that onto you, there are tons of tools now that you can use to basically get things in a timely manner. One of the things that I do specifically for my department now is we actually throw calendars into AI, and we actually get them to build units, lesson plans, timelines, and everything. Now you have to be very good with prompts because it will give you a average answer if you just throw it into AI and not tell it what you want to role play it as. But you can definitely use AI for that, even if you fall behind. I still use it. I use it all the time. And sometimes I might not use what the AI gives me, but it will give me a start, and then I can change it from there.
I really like that answer, Mr. Keith, wherein we are incorporating the technology that we have right now into the lesson or the syllabus that we have. Might be there will be some delays from our part, but if we can structure it properly, AI will help us. And in connection to that, we have a next question from Miss Nicolette. How can AI tools support teachers in reducing cognitive loads on students without making students overly dependent?
Do you want
So
me to take
Yeah.
that one
again,
too?
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
just similar to what I just said before, you could actually just type that in to an AI tool. I'm giving away some of my secrets here. I'm going to start a course soon. But I would say there are two things where I would start off for AI support. I'm just going to give you all the math nuggets for you right here. Mr. Sid has invited me, so I might as well give some nuggets away. The first one is something called prompt generator. If you Google prompt generator and you tell it exactly what you want. So for instance, I think this is Miss Nicolette. You said, how can AI tools support teachers in reducing cognitive loads on students without making students overly dependent? What I would do is that's a great question. I would actually literally take that question, put it in my prompt generator and say, I want to use chat or Gemini or Claude, whichever AI you prefer, and say, I need to get this found out. And then tell it to, I want you to role play as the best, whatever curriculum you are, if you're US or IB, US math teacher at doing curriculum, and I need this answer. And then it will give you a prompt. Now you take that prompt, and you then throw it into your AI. I promise you, prompt generators are better than you. They're better than me. They're better than everyone. If you get the AI to write the prompt for you, if you just tell it what to do, it will write the prompt. You take it in there, and it'll throw it to you. Just like I was talking about my year 9 unit that we're running about ingenious solutions. I did not come up with that. That was completely AI. Now we changed it because we use gamification for our units. So, and that's with using XP points, and you can research that as well. But what happens is the AI will give you everything and you have to check it. You have to go over it. Some of the things won't be sound. Like one of them wanted them to bring in, I think it was like 5 kgs of rice a piece. We weren't going to have kids. It would just be a mess everywhere. We're not going to use rice to fill up cones that they make. So we had to adjust that. But AI is a huge tool, but you need to do some research. And I've given you 2 hints right now that will help you vastly, I promise you.
That will be prompt generator. Thank you. I
Yeah.
will use that.
I can
Guaranteed.
also add on to that. I think AI is, as Mr. Spencer just said, this is absolutely mind-boggling. It has so much support which we can actually seek if we use it smartly. Again, what are the prompts that we're putting in? So what we can use AI is, to kind of differentiate the math lessons pretty much. So we can really, put in the efforts to, for example, there's a question we can actually give a prompt as, can you adapt this question for at the different readiness level of a student, so they can give different options of approaching the same question at a beginner's level and intermediate, and then further on for, and then you can also use that for instant feedback. For example, if a student is given some task to you, you can just put the image on it and it generates beautiful feedback, which is somewhere in our mindset, but we don't know how to really word it properly. So that can be a good support as well. It can also create some nice visual images of something which we're trying to teach, even if it's a graph or something. So once you put it in, it can create a graph and you say, oh, wow, this is a great way to approach the same topic as well. So there are multiple ways to use these prompts. It's actually pretty helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Zero, as well. So, um, any more questions that we have? Okay, Mr. Spencer put some links on the chat. If you can have a check on that one, that will be helpful for everyone.
Mr. Sid, can I just add something?
Sure, go
It's
ahead, go
just
ahead.
like a little bit related to AI, but as a teacher, as an inclusion teacher, or like in general, of course, in a world of technology right now, still individuals are still trying to find their own identity, because we can create so many things using AI, right? But I think when we encourage our student using AI, it's important also to encourage them to add their own element, so that their own identity will show. And as a class teacher, as an inclusion teacher, we will know whether this particular student got so dependent on AI that they have just generated their answer through AI, or they were able to just use it as a support, but they were able to add their own element into it. So it's just like a general comment in terms of using AI.
Thank you, Miss Yes, and I will second on that. Okay, always remember that AR is just tools. It will not replace you. It will not replace anyone. It is a tool for you to think. It will give you some hints on how to do it, but it will not replace anyone. And I think we have one more question here. How can we ensure that EAL send students access the same objectives without feeling excluded, different, or overwhelmed? So I think the question is how can we ensure that SEND students can successfully hit the mark, hit the criterias, hit the objectives without them feeling being excluded or overwhelmed. Dr. Sila.
I can answer that. So yes, you're actually right. Sometimes, in the flow of a lesson, they often feel ignored and overwhelmed with the topic that's going on. So if you're trying, so see, the goal should not change. It is just the process of approaching it that could be different for them. It could be the support they need could vary. So there could be a few keywords or key terms which could be pre-taught to them or probably been sent to them on different platforms like ManagePack or anything which they've been using. They could be allowed to show their working in alternative ways. They don't have to, at least to begin with, they don't have to show the same work process. They can, they could probably write an essay about it, make a little art piece about it, or whichever way they've understood it. This is just for the teacher to know whether they've come halfway or they're kind of making sense to what they're trying to say. You can also break the task for them in a little bit more manageable, accessible ways, so they don't have to give the whole process just like any other student on the very same day. So they can give partial answers and eventually getting there.
So thank you. So it's like working on different ways. So
Yeah.
not all students think the same way. So every student have their own kind of thinking. Then they can like express it also in different ways. So some are very good in writing exams. Some are very good in doing a video and explaining it to their peers, explaining it to you. So that would be it. Okay. Any more questions, please? I think we can get one or two more questions. Okay, last 30 seconds. All right, I don't think that there will be more questions. Thank you to our panelists for sharing both expertise and honesty. And thank you to everyone who attended this panel discussion. Thank you for being part of this very important conversation. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for having
Mr.
me, Mr.
Sid.
Sydney. Appreciate it.
Thank you so
Best of
much.
luck.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
nice
much. See
evening.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.